Hi there, this is part 2 in our 8 series video of getting ready to welcome your new puppy into your home. Today we're going to talk about finding a trainer and a vet. We're Australian Labradoodle breeders from Van Isle Labradoodles, and today I have Gigi with me sitting next to me. She has a nice brand new litter of little chocolate mini Australian Labradoodles, so she's here helping me out today and just keeping me company. So once you have been assigned your puppy or you've purchased a puppy from a breeder, it doesn't matter if it's a Labradoodle or not, you want to start working on finding a really good trainer and a really good vet pretty early in the process. Our puppies are a week old, and this is when we like to tell our families to start doing their research and start doing their interviewing. So let's start with finding a vet. Regardless of the breed of dog you have, you want to find a vet who is familiar with the breed of dog you have. In our instance, we want a vet who knows about Labradoodles. We raise Australian Labradoodles, so we want you to be sure you find a vet who at least knows that there is a difference between an Australian Labradoodle and a Labradoodle and other types of doodles. So a vet who is familiar with the breed, knows some of the ins and outs of the breed, and knows what to be looking for. Now, the other things I like to ask a vet about, and you can do this just by calling and speaking to the front desk staff. Do they have emergency hours? Are they there? Do they share those emergency hours with other veterinary clinics, or do they simply send you to an emergency vet clinic that's a 24/7 emergency one? This is important to me because I prefer a vet who does their own after-hours emergency service. Even if they share with a couple of other vets, I prefer that that is available to me at least initially for a phone consultation. This is my vet who knows my dog. This is my vet who can go and look at my dog's records and go, oh right, we had this problem with Poppy the other day. So now I know whether I can tell my client whether they should go to emergency or not. Taking your dog to emergency is not much fun and it's expensive. So you want to really have a vet who's there and can guide you, because sometimes something happens and you don't really need to go to emergency. Other times you need to go, and you need to go really quickly. Not every veterinarian is going to have a whole host of equipment to do diagnostics and testing. Some vets will have an ultrasound machine, some not. So you are going to need to have an emergency vet clinic, and that's something you also want to check out. Where is the closest one to where you live? Make sure you know how to get there. Make sure you know if there are any limitations to their hours, just so that you're familiar and in case you ever have to use one. The other thing I like to know is the vet one that is completely traditional, completely holistic, or are they a combination of the two? At Van Isle Labradoodles, our approach to the wellness of our dogs is to do everything as naturally as possible. So if our dog presents with an ear infection, first of all, we try to treat that in a more natural way, as opposed to immediately going to a steroid. Generally what happens when you use a steroid, especially on an ear infection, you will end up with the dog building up a resistance to that steroid, usually after only 2 doses of it. So that doesn't help your dog much. It generally also doesn't usually solve the problem. It just masks the symptoms. So I want to have a vet who's going to tell me what we really want to do is find out, why is your Labradoodle having reoccurring ear infections? What do we need to do to address that issue? Let's find the cause of it. What can we do to treat it that you can do at home that doesn't involve antibiotics and steroids? That's the type of vet I'm looking for. Now that doesn't mean that vet is better or that that's what you should do if that's not what you're comfortable with. If you're more comfortable with a more traditional approach, then that's the type of vet you want to find. If you're only comfortable with an entirely holistic approach, then that's the type of vet you need to find. I look for one who does a combination but likes to focus on the natural approach first. Now with our vet, we interviewed 9 vets before we found our vet. We took quite a long time to find a vet we were comfortable with. Now, of course, as Labradoodle breeders, we have some special requirements, so we had a little bit of a longer search. My vet does a combination of both, but he respects the fact that my approach is to be natural first, and he adjusts his practice to mirror that thought process. He always gives me all of the options. We discuss the pros and cons of each of them, and then together we arrive at what seems to be the best approach. And oftentimes I have had dogs who have had reoccurring ear infections, and we did have to use drugs. The holistic approach simply didn't solve the problem and make them comfortable. So I'm always open to both. So that's something I like to check out with the vet. The other thing you want to do is check their hours. Are their hours convenient to what you need? Are they open on Saturdays, Sundays, in the evenings, or are they just a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 sort of arrangement? If that suits your schedule, then it's not a problem. If you need to be going more on weekends or later in the evening, then you're going to want to look for a vet who does that. The other thing I suggest, especially if you're getting one of our Van Isle Labradoodle puppies, is that you talk to the vet what their thoughts are on feeding raw food. All of our puppies and our adult dogs eat a 100% raw food diet. Now, unfortunately, nutrition is not something that is covered at vet school, so a lot of them are not particularly well informed when it comes to nutritional matters. Most of them have not too much experience with a raw food diet either. So you at least want to find a vet who is not entirely opposed to the fact that you're feeding your dog raw food, and every time you show up with an issue isn't going to say, oh, it's because you're feeding raw food, without considering it's going to be something else. You may want to move on and look for a different one. Our vet, we have 4 vets at the clinic. One of them is a vet who's been around for many, many, many years. He's the same age as I am, and he vehemently opposes raw feeding. He's just definitely not a fan. However, after seeing many of our litters and our puppies and seeing how robust they are, he has grudgingly changed his opinion to maybe, but he still feeds his dog kibble. 2 of the other vets are considerably younger than I am, in their late 30s and early 30s, and they're entirely open to the concept of raw feeding. And indeed, one of our vets now refers their clients back to me if they have another client who has a question about raw food, because they acknowledge they simply are not well versed enough in it. And then the youngest and newest vet, he really doesn't have an opinion one way or the other, but I do know he feeds his dog kibble. So you want to have one who's at least open to working with you, isn't going to be critical of you for your decisions. And again, it's great for vets to give you full information. We have one dog who's overweight, and my vet said, I know you don't feed kibble, but perhaps she needs to go on a weight management kibble to really start to lose weight. We took that advice, and it is the only thing that has helped her to lose weight. So you too need to be open and not just stuck in one thought process. So those are the types of things that I suggest you look for when you are looking for a vet clinic. Now for a trainer. Trainers are a totally different subject. Anybody can hang out their shingle and say, hey, I'm a dog trainer. They don't ever have to have learned anything. Lots of trainers will say if they're certified or not, and sometimes that has some actual value and sometimes not. If you find a trainer who says they're certified, ask, who certified you? What did you do to become certified? You can become and call yourself a certified trainer after only taking about 10 hours of courses on the internet. If they've got lots of practical experience, then I don't think that's a problem. But if they're brand new and they've only done that, I might be moving on to somebody different. So check that out first of all. You also want to know what their basic philosophy is. The 2 main types of training are either luring or shaping. And when you lure your dog, you're using a treat or another reward, which is often praise, especially if you have a Labradoodle. Labradoodles have a dreadful food drive, and they are far more happy to be rewarded with your love and praise than they are to always have a treat. The treat helps, but the love is what they're really seeking. So you use that praise or the treat to get them to behave in the way you want them to do. So if you're teaching your dog to sit, you use the treat and you use it physically to physically have the dog go naturally into a sit. If you use shaping, you use a clicker method and you wait until your dog does the behavior, and then you click to mark the behavior and reward them with a treat. It's entirely a personal decision as to which approach you prefer. For me, I like luring. I don't have the patience and the tolerance to do the clicker method. I find it's not as rewarding for myself, and it's a much slower process, and I find my dogs tend to get frustrated with it. You may think it's the best thing ever though. If you have one of our Australian Labradoodle puppies, they will be able to do either of those very successfully. Being intelligent and learning quickly is one of the hallmark traits of Labradoodles. But depending on your breed, you will want to know which works better for your dog. So do a little bit of research. Use Mr. Google there to do some research and find out what does your breed of dog respond to most readily. And also be honest with yourself. Do you have a lot of patience, or is your training really, it's the time you have to allot for it and it's only that much time each day? Then you might want to do the one that's a little bit quicker. So ask that of the trainer, which method do they use? You also don't want to have a trainer that uses any force or any sort of discipline. No cheating, no prong collars, no choke collars, nothing that involves any physical force with your dog. It doesn't matter if you have the largest, biggest dog from a breed that has a reputation for being a little bit stubborn and difficult to train, to the tiniest little toy dog who will do whatever you say. None of those dogs are going to respond, and none of those dogs are actually learning if you're using force. You want the dog to actually learn the behavior and want to do the behavior for you. Now, Van Isle Labradoodles, we encourage everybody to use what we call a bond-based approach to learning. And that means you're learning just as much as your dog is learning. Because oftentimes when we see people who have troubles with puppies of any breed, it's usually the person that needs to be retrained as opposed to the dog. So we want to find people who are willing to build a relationship with their dog. So there's lots of mutual respect, and you have to earn that respect from your dog. And there's lots of love back and forth both ways. Your dog needs to trust you, believe in you, have faith in you, be confident in you, and absolutely respect you. That's the most important thing. So I like to look for a trainer who also feels that those things are important and that that's the approach that they take. That's what I look for. Again, that might not be your choice, but those are the things I look for. And if you have an Australian Labradoodle from Van Isle Labradoodles, that's the kind of trainer you're going to be looking for. That's how your puppy's going to have been raised here. And you see, we have Gigi here, so she's sitting here. Her puppies are off to the side over here. She's not in the least bit worried. She's totally relaxed. She has her head on my lap. And this dog is in a guardian home, so she's not with me 24/7. She's just here to have her puppies and to come for a visit once about every 2 months. She completely trusts me. She's always making eye contact with me. You'll see that she'll probably put her head up and look at me again in a minute. There she is doing it right now. Hi, baby. And she's totally relaxed because I've earned her trust, I've earned her confidence, and I've earned her love. So she knows that even though her puppies, who are only a week old, are over here and away from her, that she knows I'm here and keeping them safe. That's what I mean by a bond-based approach and having a mutual relationship with your dog. If you do that, you're guaranteed of success. And the trainer becomes a little less important, but you do want to have a really good trainer. The other thing you want to do is make sure you find where there is puppy socialization, kindergarten, group lessons that you're going to start with your dog as soon as they've been home with you long enough to have their second set of shots. So that's usually around 12 weeks. It's so important that your puppy get out and socialize. So you want to make sure you've got that all lined up right after you take your puppy home. And for your vet visit, your first vet visit, most breeders, if you've purchased your dog from a professional breeder, they will require that you take your puppy for their first vet exam 3 days after you take your puppy home. That's the general time frame. And that's so you have an independent source telling you that your puppy is healthy. So that's your tips today for picking a vet and a trainer. You can start working on that now. Phone them up, get a feel from your telephone call. After you've had the telephone call, set up a time for an appointment to go in. If it's a trainer, ask if you can come and observe some classes. That will give you a really good idea of what that trainer is all about. If it's a vet clinic you want to check out further, then make an appointment to speak with the vet and be prepared to pay for that. Don't expect to have it for free. 9 times out of 10, the vet won't charge you. I always offer to pay though. You're taking up their time, and I think it's only appropriate that you offer to pay for that time and get a feel. And then you'll be able to decide. You'll have that all set out and organized before your puppy comes home, which gives you lots of time to focus on enjoying your brand new puppy. If you have any questions or anything further you want to ask me about either of these subjects, please post them in the comments below. I'm more than happy to answer. It doesn't matter whether you have a Labradoodle or any other type of breed. I'm more than happy to help you get your puppy all sorted out so that you have a long, successful relationship with your wonderful new dog. Thanks for watching.